hate him, right? I hate him myself.
Alright, this one's not so much a tutorial as it is just kind of me having fun. I got this piece from Adepticon in Chicago in 2019. It was just in one of the swag bags. It was a giveaway. I think it's from Anvil 8 Games. I'll link below after I check it out. But just having some coffee here. Just recording this. Like I said, this one's just for fun, not a tutorial. But this base coat I'm putting down was right over black primer, and this is the same base coat I used, I think, for the body of the Mephitic Blight Hauler from 40K. So it took quite a number of coats to get that on. Once that was fully dry, I figured I'd go in with some camo shade instead of the Caribou Crimson that I was using for my little recipe for flesh. I wanted to give this guy a more insect kind of slime feel, so I figured I'd give him this green shade, and then we go back in and glaze back over, get a translucent look. So getting this in there, it felt kind of dirty at first looking, because that camo green over that flesh tone just didn't seem to work, but I figured I'd keep pressing on. So here I'm going in with the crimson I use, kind of being careful, not just giving it a quick wash, but being a little more strategic and surgical about its placement for the opening of the mouth here. Yeah, this is where I'm going back with the Vallejo's basic skin tone. Another light glaze, just hitting all the raised open areas to give it that translucent look. Anything recessed where the shade is settled, or the wash, that it's going to be more constricted, and I could see more of the skin, the pigment or whatever it is being condensed there. So again, going for that translucent, kind of like a slug or a grub would have. It's got that real transparent, almost translucent skin over all the intestines and innards and whatever. So I'm gonna go for that little bit of a gross feel here. I don't know, a side note here, I've always been more accustomed to painting stuff like Space Marines or mechs, anything with like hard surfaces that was very defined, real sharp edges. I really didn't get into painting organic things until I found things like Creature Caster, the company that makes resin models, and getting into Nurgle and Death Guard. I always thought it was going to be a real pain to do this stuff, and I found out it's absolutely awesome. I love it much more than doing the hard surface. What am I doing here? I think I'm just picking out some of the sharper highlights with some ivory. Nothing too crazy here. This is just to give it a sense of being slimy. Some kind of harder highlights. It was actually a little difficult getting into this model. Wasn't the most inspiring thing. It wasn't completely unique. It's just a science fiction, fantasy, just a sandworm. Nothing we haven't seen before in movies and video games and other gaming. But I figured, what the hell, get them out, just paint them up and kind of experiment a little bit. I didn't get too far out of my comfort zone with them, but enough to get a couple of new results, especially with that bug flesh with the green. I never tried that before, so that was kind of neat. But in hindsight, with this flesh, I would have probably gone with a brown as a base, it would have had better coverage. Building up to that ivory. Just starting off with a basic skin tone over just raw black primer, it was a real headache, and I almost threw in the towel right away because this wasn't for gaming. This wasn't a competition piece or anything. This is just me having fun, but I pressed on, and I'm glad I did. But from here on out, definitely gonna build up from a darker color. Doing the base coat for, I guess I don't know, call them scales or the armor plates or whatever it is on this SandWorm. Just using a brown from Vallejo's Game Color line. Now, their Game Color line, they do have their extra opaque, which is similar to the base colors in GW Citadel. So this is technically a layer paint, so it's going to be a little thinner out of the bottle, but it seemed to have pretty good coverage. I'm just kind of taking my time here because I didn't want to hit any of the work I'd already done. Then I was kind of in a zen mode at this point. I think I had a drink out and some good music, and I was just kind of having fun with it. But then, yeah, this is just laying down base coat all over those armor plates. Now, while I will have all the colors I used listed, I mean, there's obviously no right or wrong way to paint something like this. It's a SandWorm. It's not a Space Marine chapter, which is very stringent on their color choices and the application of those, but this, I just have fun with it. And that's kind of the nice thing to getting these free models at conventions is you do kind of have test models, and sometimes you find something pretty cool. And the more and more I painted this guy, I realized I really started to like this model, even though, again, SandWorm, nothing shocking. It is a pretty good sculpt. I had some issues cleaning it up. The resin cast wasn't far from perfect, especially around the mouth and the tiny little feet sticking out of the belly of the body there. They had some really rough edges, even some bubbles that formed in the resin, but it really wasn't out of the ordinary for just a bulk resin model. So I think Anvil 8, I think it's the company's name, they did a pretty good job. I like the sculpt, it's solid. It's got its flaws, but it was pretty good. Here we're going to get a bit of a highlight. That was way too strong right there, so I had to water it down more. This is where I just kind of picked out a good triad of colors. Base, mid, highlight. Nothing shocking. This was fairly thinned down. It wasn't quite to a glaze consistency at all. Just a little more thin than you would normally have for putting down a layer of paint. And just dragging it out and depositing the majority of the pigment towards the edge of each armor plate. I don't think I went back and edge highlighted this. We'll see. But this is where I try to keep with a sketchy pattern, like right there, just kind of almost drawing lines instead of one big smooth coat. I want to give it a bit of texture, make it look, chipped up, worn, and stressed from burrowing under the sand, and just the stress on the armor plates starting to chip and crack towards the edges. So this is not a smooth coat nor did I want it to be. find it kind of funny that I even picked these colors to begin with, where around my circle of friends and gamers here locally, I'm pretty famous for just painting in green and purple and really not using any other colors. Every time I try and stray away from that color scheme, something happens within the model where I get drawn back into purples and greens. So doing browns and yellows and ivories, this was not something I normally do, and I'm glad I did. It's good to try, new color schemes every once in a while. Like I said, that green and purple is getting old. Even though I'm doing Death Guard right now for my Warhammer army, it's a lot of greens and purples. So I think I'm gonna take breaks with models like this and just pick random colors, no plan, and just see what happens. But here I'm using the next color up and really chipping away at that edge, giving it a sketched look. Yeah, I'm not really edge highlighting anything. I'm just I'm staying close to the edge with this final color. See, I'm just kind of almost like linearly stippling, if that's a term, in there. Breaking out the wash here, I can't remember which one it is, I'll list it. I wanted to just get really deep into those recesses there and give it some shadow, and I didn't feel like actually going in with paint because I kind of wanted to shift the tone a little bit. It was a little too kind of dry and drab. This gave it a much more warm tone to it, and as soon as I hit it with the brush, it was exactly what I wanted. I knew immediately this is what I needed to get. Trying to get to that Mars surface color, or terracotta, something along those lines. And it kept all the shading that I initially done under it from those three colors. We're just shifting the hue of it to a more reddish end of the spectrum to make it much more warm. So one thing I didn't do with this model is do any sort of zenithal highlight or a real light source. I kind of wanted to keep a lot of my gaming miniatures without a light source and keep something like that to more of my display pieces and competition pieces that are trying to tell a story. These are for hitting the table, and just in my mind, I know this isn't the popular opinion, but to me, when it comes to a gaming piece, giving it an absolute direction of light for all your models on the table, well, they're all going to be spread out and end up facing different directions and clashing with other models and terrain, and it's not going to fit anyway. So for me, gaming miniatures, there really is no light source to me, so paint the textures and everything how they would be and let natural light fall on the table so they seem like they fit the environment. Here we're just using this. I've never used before. It was a little expensive for how much you get in there. I didn't realize I was going to use as much as I did for this little piece. I think from now on, I might stick with Vallejo's bigger tubs of sand and pumice and mud, all their paste. They're the same price for, God, 20 times the amount. But it did give a nice crackle effect. It didn't take long to dry and crack like that. I'm glad I washed the miniature to make it much more warm. It does fit this ground color much better. And here I'm just going to go in and dry brush a tone up just to get some detail out of it. Again, nothing shocking here, but yeah, it works. It's funny, as I'm recording this, I went back just now to check the audio levels, because I'm still pretty new to this, and wow, yeah, music was way high. I'm glad I went back and turned that down to hear my calm and soothing nasally voice as I describe this. But here I'm just going over dry brushing, and don't worry about clipping the edge of the base. We're going to paint that black anyway. Just rim it. And I'm not too worried about hitting the model itself, because it is in its own environment. If it gets a little bit of that dust on there, if anything, it'll tie it together, so not a big deal. It can be a little sloppy here. This is just to bring out some detail. Yeah, most of my models, whether it's for gaming or competition display, whatever, I almost always edge all my bases in just pure Vallejo black paint, nothing fancy. I don't like to draw attention to the rim of the base. I know some guys put labels on there, they put different colors, whatever, and I just don't want to do that so much. It kind of outlines the model itself for me. Especially when it hits tabletop, depending on the ground cover and what you're playing on. That black outline is the easiest to tell where you are for the most part. But again, yeah, not everybody does that. This is just me. So I'm just kind of throwing a couple of Army Painter grass tufts, just to kind of finish off the scene. Nothing crazy, it's just another added detail. These did not have a very adhesive bottom to them, unlike the Games Workshop tufts. The Games Workshop ones I was kind of worried about, and I put super glue on them, which, as I learned after my last tutorial when I was continuing to work on my army, was totally unnecessary. But these, there was no way they were going to stick on their own. I don't know if it was just a bad batch, or the glue or the adhesive dried out or whatnot, but this is the only set I've purchased from Army Painter. I mean, I'll give them another shot because they are good tufts, but again, the adhesive is, well, garbage. It's the best way to put it. It's just non-existent. And there we go. It's a finished basic SandWorm. This is a fun little model to paint. I didn't expect it because it was just a freebie in the one of the swag bags at Adepticon. So I'm glad I got it. I'm gonna keep digging through that bag because there's a lot in there, and we'll get some more, random videos of just testing techniques out, different color schemes and patterns and textures, and we'll see what we can come up with. Until then, I'm gonna get back to painting my 40k army. So thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.